Bayern was a disaster, Jan. An absolute disaster. Oli Hoeneß, of course, described that time as a catastrophe. So is Thomas Tuchel lost his touch, maybe? And should that be a concern for England going forward?
I think it's very interesting to note what Archie said at the beginning here, because he doesn't have the lobby. You have a lobby in Germany, and if the big Muppets, there are more than two there, more than the Muppet Show, sitting on a balcony, they just kind of decide who is in and who is out. And as Archie is saying, no, with Jurgen Klopp, who was the one, I love clubs that have the social soul of them. And now he's suddenly by Red Bull, what are we doing now? And look, Uli Hoeneß now, no Vincent Kompany is the best thing that happened in Germany since modern talking. No, everything is fine. Let's have a show in 1 year time when they are out by Ajax in the quarterfinal of the Champions League. So this is a lot of image building. Yes, it's a branding, but there's a lot of coaches who have had trouble in Bayern. And by the way, they supported him when he got in, and then that wasn't the Bayern way of playing. I'm saying it again. He won the Champions League with Chelsea. He showed there that he knew that kind of knockout stages game. That is football. Sometimes we have national coaches. We have one in Norway as well, who always say, this is a part of our project. This is a part of our project. The project for a national coach is to win football games the next game. And as we see the stats now for England at major tournaments, what has he got to lose? Because they criticised Gareth Southgate. It wasn't even good to go in the final. So maybe he just have to play good football now, and every pundit in England will be happy.
Archie, what sort of relationship will he have with the players that he's looking to get together?
That's one of the most interesting elements for me, is how he manages the likes of Cole Palmer, Bukayo Saka, Harry Kane, Phil Foden, how all of these pieces of the puzzle fit together. Because we saw at Bayern, for example, that he wanted to have a certain structure when defending on the counter, and he was desperate to have a holding midfielder in Declan Rice, who he couldn't get over from West Ham at the time, so he went to Arsenal instead. And I think that he will have a very clear idea. And I think that with Gareth Southgate sometimes, he did get to 2 finals. You can't argue with that. But I think that you saw with some of his team selections, and indeed when you got to those finals, that he got quite caught up in his own head. And I think that Thomas Tuchel has a much greater clarity and clinical touch to him, which, even if it may upset some people, he still actually gets the players to do the job and be respected. So I think that that's going to be the thing that he's going to have to manage, is managing club fans' favourites with the national team. People saying, oh, but these players have to play, when Thomas Tuchel will be able to go, actually, these are the players who actually fit into my system. And how he manages that as well with the personality of someone like Jude Bellingham, and how all of these players fit together. I think that's the most interesting thing, particularly when we've always heard about fans saying, Gareth Southgate, he needs to let the handbrake off. And I think I've been one of them as well. But the thing is that with Thomas Tuchel, the kind of football he wants to play is very controlled. It's been described by his detractors at Bayern as being quite defensive. But it's, I would say, defensive possession is maybe the best way of putting it. He wants to dominate you, but if that means by having a period of possession, he'll do that. So it may not set pulses racing, and how that goes down with the English public is going to be fascinating to see.
The one thing Southgate, well, amongst the many decent and good things he did, he harnessed a much better vibe and relationship between star players and big newspapers and journalists. It was much less of a them and us. There was always a little bit if it was a bad game or a bad result, but it was much more inviting for journalists to come in and sort of chat to the players in a more relaxed fashion. And I think that took a little bit of the edge of some of these relationships that can pop up when you're having a bad time and the headline is terrible and you go after the journalist and you really can bash heads. There was less of that. He did a great job at doing that, and I think, you know, that's something that really a manager has to manage as well when you're managing these big countries. Right? It's not just England. You know, the pressure in Germany and Italy and Spain and South America is the same. The elite countries, you have to manage the press as well. But I do get a feeling from the last 24 hours that there are quite a lot of people out there, maybe some fans, but certainly some pundits who would be quite happy to see this fall flat on its face. To turn around and say, well, see, we told you should have gone English, we told you it wouldn't work going down a German route. But what you can't sort of argue against is, and as Archie touched on, when you got to that Croatia game, for example, the semi-final of the World Cup in 18, when they were getting completely outflanked in the middle of the park, and we all sat watching it going, he's got to get an extra body in it. He did nothing. There was little moments like that in these big semi-finals, and I think there is no doubt that Thomas Tuchel is much, much better equipped. Not perfect, but to handle that kind of scenario.
Well, he did it, didn't
when
he?
things are going wrong in a huge game.
He did that for Chelsea in the Champions League final. It's exactly what he did. They were getting overrun in the middle of the park, and he flooded the middle of the park, which is exactly the thing that everybody's complained that Gareth Southgate doesn't do. Now, he might not be as good as Southgate at that nice, fuzzy feeling with the press and all that. He might not give that. But guess what? I think I'd rather have somebody who can turn a final into a win and not just another silver medal.